From rigid sports takes to sports analytics and predictions that would make the Gray Sports Almanac smile. It's the Afternoon Drive with Jake Wimberly on ESPN 105.9 The Zone and online at thezone1059.com.
Brought to you by Ameristar Casino. It is the Afternoon Drive. We're streaming on the Zone1059.com, and we're brought to you by Live Oaks Golf Club. Reminder, you can still get tickets to the Matt Wyatt event. An evening with Matt Wyatt discussing the Egg Bowl next week, Mississippi State and Ole Miss. It'll be a good game next week on Thanksgiving night. $50 tickets. Just go to liveoaksgc.com to learn more today, and, of course, follow them on all the social media platforms as well. Also follow Bill Bender on Twitter, and, of course, check out the sporting news as he's kind enough to give us some time on the Malone Roofing call line. Bill, what's going on, brother?
Hey, not much, Jake. Thanks for having me on.
Man, I appreciate it. All right, so I'm seeing reports before we get into this, and I'm sure I would assume that you've seen this or have rumblings of this, the possibility of a new Mel Tucker contract extension, 10 years, $95 million. Have you seen this? And if so, your thoughts on the possibility of this actually happening?
Well, I mean, it's quite a raise and quite an opportunity for him, meaning that LSU is probably pressing for him and trying to get him, and you know, you get a raise. Mel Tucker's done a fantastic job in a short time at Michigan State. I can see why they would want to keep him around. It shows the commitment to wanting to keep him around, and with good reason. So it'll be interesting to see where this goes from here, especially after Bruce Feldman's tweet that Lincoln Riley to LSU is probably not going to happen. And Bruce is as plugged in as anybody.
Bill, let me ask you this. What is the ceiling? I mean, obviously, if Michigan State's got the cash, and I'm sure they do, to come off this for that much money, What is the ceiling for Michigan State? I mean, they made the college football playoff back in 2014, 2015, but they still lack in the recruiting to keep up with Ohio State and Michigan, I think, annually. And I don't know that they have the horses to play with the Alabamas and the Georgias. So what is the ceiling for – what would be the appeal for Tucker to stay, say, at Michigan State versus to head off to a place like LSU like Nick Saban did?
I mean, that's a good question. I mean, I think he's found a way to work the transfer portal. Guys like Tavares Crouch and others have really – Kenneth Walker. I mean, it doesn't get much better than that out of the transfer portal when you're able to get a Heisman Trophy candidate. So if he can continue to do that, to your point, yeah, I thought Michigan State kind of hit their ceiling with Mark D'Antonio, and that ceiling, I can't remember the score. I think it was 38-0 when they played Alabama in the Cotton Bowl in the playoff. So it's not easy, and it's not easy competing with Michigan, Ohio State. You're seeing now, Jake, that they beat Michigan. They're still behind them in the rankings. That's got to be the frustrating part of that job.
Bill Bender is on Twitter at BillBender92, national college football writer for the Sporting News. Bill, you put out an article, and we talked about it in the first segment, about Alabama. Could Alabama test the two-loss rule? And it kind of expand on this a little bit. I think you're onto something here because the way this thing is unfolding, I mean, we could see possibly, and you know possibilities are, Oregon go down to Utah this weekend. Michigan State could upend Ohio State. The Big Ten could come out with a two-loss champion. There could be a two-loss champion in the Big 12. We know the ACC is eliminated from this thing for all intents and purposes. Alabama at two losses, there is a scenario where they could still get in.
Yeah, and I think Cincinnati better be wary of it because you could also, on top of everything you just mentioned, TV executives are going to wake up in the morning and ask, how can we make the most money? And it's part of it, right? So I think Alabama, if they lose to Georgia and lose close, the path is open for them to be the first two-loss team to make the college football playoff. And it tests those two rules. Never happened. Some teams have got close. Georgia's been fifth twice and, playing in the SEC championship game and losses. So I don't know, man. I woke, like 2 weeks ago, you asked me that. I thought it was ridiculous, and I just kind of thought about it a lot, and that's kind of what the article goes into. And I think, talking to my editors, they were like, that's a very likely scenario, even if it's not what should happen.
Notre Dame's sitting here at number 8, and I know the collective audience, especially in the South down here, and I would say in parts of, pockets of the country, I roll at Notre Dame possibly getting back in the playoff. But Bill, that is on the table, is it not?
It is. I mean, they could go 11-1. What hurts them a little more is they don't have that conference championship game. So I think it makes it a little bit tougher for them to get in. That said, I mean, the committee's shown, hey, they could bump Notre Dame over Cincinnati and base it on all the Power 5 schools they've played. And they've looked pretty good the last 4 weeks. So I still think Notre Dame's ceiling this year is probably the Orange Bowl, but or not the Orange Bowl, one of those bowls where the ACC school gets in. But I don't know that they're going to have enough to make the playoff.
Twice you've mentioned Cincinnati and getting possibly, and that's the big question. Everybody's saying what's going to happen with Cincinnati. They're sitting there at 5. You would have, and you're sitting here going, or at least I am saying, okay, look, if Oregon loses, if Ohio State loses, if Alabama loses, they're just going to get bumped in. But I sense that you still feel, and I think a lot of people do, that I can't remember the company, but the brand where the old man with the fishing pole and says, hey, you almost got it. You almost got it. They're just dangling this from front of Cincinnati saying, you almost had it, man. You were almost there, but not close enough.
And I remember that commercial too. So very good call. Yeah, and that's what I'm sensing. And I'm in Ohio. I think Cincinnati deserves a shot if they go 13-0. I think they've proven everything. I just have the sense and knowing the committee's behavior and kind of hearing the phrases that Gary Barta uses on a weekly basis that they're going to find a way to squeeze them out. And some of it is based on the last 4 weeks. They haven't covered. They haven't looked great at times. But I keep telling people that they're still winning. I mean, it's not like there hasn't been a point in any of those games where I thought Cincinnati was going to lose, except maybe very briefly when Tulsa had the ball down by the goal line.
Bill Bender on your radio, Wednesday edition of the program. We're streaming on the zone1059.com. All right, so Florida, Dan Mullen, Florida and Miami collectively in the state of Florida. Will those jobs be open at the end of the year, or will those two coaches, Manny Diaz and Dan Mullen, get another shot?
See, I mean, I think with Florida, it's the bizarre. I think what's going to happen in Florida is the staff's going to get revamped, and there's going to be a lot of pressure on Dan Mullen next year, unless something happens in these last 2 weeks that continues this downward spiral that they've had. Miami, I would wait until they get the next athletic director. Maybe that buys Manny Diaz another year, but I wouldn't be surprised if they go fishing. Speaking of that fishing pool for like a Mario Cristobal or a Hugh Freeze or a Mark Stoops who has Miami ties and tries to get that program up and running.
Next week is the Egg Bowl, where I'll be on a short week, so I doubt we'll have a chance to visit. Who do you like way too early? Mississippi State and Mike Leach, the way they've been playing football, or Ole Miss, who's been playing really good football as well? It should be a fantastic ball game here in the state. Yeah,
and Mississippi State's playing good ball. I like sitting on my chair in the living room with a piece of pumpkin pie watching that game.
Right.
Is what I like, and it should be very entertaining. So I like Ole Miss. I think Ole Miss has a chance here over the next 2 weeks to clinch a New Year's Day 6 bowl. Lane Kiffin's going to be mentioned in all these job openings too, based on how he's done in a short time at Ole Miss and created one of the nation's most remarkable and fun and prolific offenses. So that's not to say Mississippi State can't win the game. They're going to throw it around too. Mike Leach has them playing good ball as well. Should be wildly entertaining as always.
Bill, let's get you out the door with this, staying in the state of Mississippi, as Leach and Kiffin have obviously created a ton of buzz, but Deion Sanders has as well. And, we've seen right here in the capital city of Jackson the buzz that he has created with, sellout for homecoming. There's a sellout that's coming up weekend, Capital City Classic against Alcorn State. His son, Shadur Sanders, has put up an amazing stat line. Deion's name has been floated out there for the TCU job, and it will continue to float. What is the likelihood that he does take another job in your mind, just, from 10,000 feet here in the next year or two, and will he get that opportunity?
We're kind of all waiting for him to take Florida State and once and for all and go from there and see if that – but, that would require Mike Norvell being out of the job. So I think what he's done is incredible. You're talking to a Packers fan here who dreaded watching him on the old Cowboys teams because you knew he was going to pick off a pass or two but a remarkable coach. I think he's been great this year, and I think he will end up in the Power 5 eventually. But one of the things that he has done that's gone kind of under the radar is he is a remarkable advocate for HBCUs, right? And everything he's done there. And maybe he sticks around there a little bit longer because in this NIL era, it's a great thing for those schools. There's no doubt about that.
Find him on Twitter at BillBender92. And, of course, check him out, sportingnews.com, as they've always got you teed up with great college football content around the country. Bill, always appreciate your time. And if I don't visit with you, have a great Thanksgiving. We will catch up again soon.
Hey, no problem, Jake. Thanks for having me. Take care.